Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. The promise that all men would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Give me your heart, give me your song, sing it with all your might. Come to the fountain and let me hear you testify.
I have a dream that this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed.
Oh, I will give myself to you.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
Give me your heart, give me your song, sing it with all your might. Come to the fountain and you can be satisfied. There is a peace, there is a love, you can get lost inside. Come to the fountain and let me hear you testify.
I've been to the mountaintop. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land.
Mist on the mountain, rising from the crowd.
I have a dream that my 4 little children will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
Give me your heart, give me your song, sing it with all your might. Come to the fountain and you can be satisfied. There is a peace, there is a love, you can get lost inside. Come to the fountain and let me hear you testify.
I have a dream when all of God's children, black men and white men, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old spiritual. Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
Let me hear you testify.
Hello, my name is Lois Skubal. I am from Ainsworth, Iowa, just 30 minutes down the road that way. I am a senior and an education major and a psychology minor. And the quote that I chose for today's service is, "We must learn to live together as brothers, or we will die together as fools." This quote really resonates with me in looking at the events of the past year. I am 22 years old, and so this year I've lived through some events that are going to go down in history. And so for the first time in my life, I really saw things that pulled apart families and strained friendships. And that was kind of scary to me. And I think that it's very important that when we realize that we aren't all going to see eye to eye, but we have to learn to live together as brothers. When I was growing up, I know that I didn't always get along with my siblings or even my parents, but I still learned to love them and to get along with them, and I think that's very important. There's something very special in when you disagree with someone, still finding what you can agree on and bonding in that. It's definitely a lot easier to focus on the things that you disagree on. That's easier to see, but working together to find things that you both enjoy and that you can share together. I have two of my best friends on campus are Marche and Ashley. These ladies, they just make me smile every day. They make me laugh my head off. They are American, but they have African roots. And I am so thankful that people like Martin Luther King and a lot of other people made it possible for all of us to go to college together, and that I get to share my experience of going to college with these ladies. I'm just thankful for it every single day. So I'm excited to greet you all as my brothers and my Iowa Wesleyan family. And thank you for the students and staff and faculty and Iowa Wesleyan community members that I have come today to remember Martin Luther King and the things that he did. Martin Luther King was a very good speaker. He spoke with kindness and gentleness. And he also was a Baptist preacher. So if you would join with me in prayer, we're going to pray to the same God that he prayed very faithfully to. Dear God, thank you for this day. Thank you for the day that you have made and the things that you created in it. Our in-person classes start tomorrow, and we thank you for that. And just being able to be in person and be together, we just pray that you would guide the professors and give them the words to speak and teach our students, guide our students, myself included, that we would have open ears to hear what the professors are telling us, and that we would keep it in our minds that it would benefit us later in the future. Give wisdom to our Iowa Wesleyan officials as well as the officials of our government. Lord, you've put these people over us. And we just pray that they would look to you when making decisions and the things that they decide for us. Lord, also help us to keep them accountable. Help us to encourage them, but also to say something when things aren't right. Lord, thank you for the staff and the community and the students and everyone that is here today to remember Martin Luther King. Thank you for his example and for the things that he taught us and the example that you gave us to stand up when things are unjust and people are being treated unjustly. Thank you for everything that you have done and the things that you have given us. And these things we pray in your name. Amen.
My name is Demetrius Holmes, and I'm from Chicago. My major is psychology, and I am a junior, and I am a double major in humanities and criminal justice. The quote that stood out most to me is from Dr. King is, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that." See, with me, this quote has a lot of different meanings. One, darkness to me isn't everybody. So that's kind of impossible. Love, that's something that we all need. And light is just something to help us get us through our day. See, it's a difference between loving somebody from a distance, and it's a difference between loving somebody from the inside and based off the judgment of their character. And King once said that before, I believe. And the character that we all show may not always be what everybody expects it to be, but that's just us. Real love. Nothing more, nothing less. King was the original Black man with the dream, and I claim myself as a Black man with a dream. I'm glad that he was able to run so I can walk today. So, Dr. King, thank you. The lesser of the two evils do not exist between darkness and light. Darkness is something we can embrace and change, and light is something we can enhance to see tomorrow. Love is the only thing that brings us all together in a world that people believe is split between good and evil. But tell me, what is the difference between good and evil? Just because something looks evil from your perspective, that does not mean it's good from another one's. And trust me, it's always good to have an open mind and an open heart. Because when you open your heart and love someone just as much as you love yourself, change will happen. And that is the change that Dr. King seeks and looks for today for us. And for that, we're thankful. Haters will hate, but embrace it and alter it. It will make the choices that we decide between our fate and between how much love we decide to give for one another. In my opinion, Love is one thing that we all share regardless. And love is one thing that you may not see today, you may not see in the next minute, but you will see in your lifetime. Just take a breath and remember that darkness will always be part of you, but love will always conquer that darkness. Thank you.
Okay, hi guys, my name is Nico. I'm from a country called New Zealand. A lot of people haven't heard of it. People usually hear of Australia and assume that I'm from Australia, but I'm from New Zealand. And I'm a physical education major, and I'm a junior as well. And I'm here representing the International Student Organization. One of the quotes from Dr. Martin Luther King that stood out with me is, "An individual has not started living until he can rise above the narrow confines of his individualistic concerns to the broader concerns of all humanity." See, I couldn't agree more with this statement because I feel like it relates to a lot of the problems and situations in our current day within many different aspects of the world. My father always told me that the world doesn't revolve around me, and I'm sure a lot of other people heard that as well. And that's why I think I would like to elaborate on this quote a bit more. Because in our current society, we find ourselves that we are stuck because we feel like everything is against us, or like with this pandemic, for example, things aren't working out in our favor right now. But at the end of the day, there are bigger problems, there are bigger issues out there. And I feel like that's what Martin Luther King was trying to touch upon. So I just repeat the quote once more so that you can remember. "An individual has not started living until he can rise above the narrow confines of his individualistic concerns to the broader concerns of all humanity." Thank you.
We're going to pull up another video here. We always take the time as an educational institution for us to learn a little bit about the life of Dr. Martin Luther King. So this is from Biography Channel, and it's a 4-minute video for us to learn more about the history of Dr. King.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
Martin Luther King Jr. was born on January 15, 1929, and graduated as the valedictorian of Crozier Theological Seminary in 1951. King became pastor of a Baptist church in Montgomery, Alabama, and later completed his PhD.
Martin Luther King was a religious man. He was a pastor who looked at racism and all of the so-called separate but equal laws and the terrible treatment of people of color in the United States. And he said, this is absolutely wrong. This is against God's will. This is not recognizing the dignity of peoples. And he made us all face that in very powerful ways.
On the eve of Rosa Parks' refusal to move to the back of a city bus in 1955, King was chosen to lead a citywide bus boycott. 2 years later, King and a group of civil rights activists formed the Southern Christian Leadership Conference to conduct nonviolent protests for civil rights.
When Martin Luther King led the Alabama boycott, that was a major turning point in the fight for civil rights. What you saw was people who had been fractionized coming together as one, walking together with others joining the fight. This was when people, America, the world, stood up and said, whoa, what are we looking at here? An amazing time.
Inspired by Gandhi's activism, King worked with the SCLC to organize Black voters and civil rights protests. In 1963, King was arrested at a march in Alabama. During his prison time, King wrote a rebuttal to an article denouncing his methods. His longhand notes on the margins of the newspaper became known as Letter from Birmingham Jail and was famously republished and studied in colleges across the country.
Martin Luther King was a man of God who believed that that calling necessitated social change in the present, and he put his life on the line for that calling.
Free at last! Free at last! Thank God Almighty! We are free at last!
On August 28, 1963, King led more than 20,000 people in a massive demonstration at the Lincoln Memorial, where his speech, "I Have a Dream," became a defining moment in civil rights history. Through his work, King helped pass the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and received the Nobel Peace Prize that same year.
Martin Luther King, according to Time in 1963, personified the civil rights movement. He took on one of the greatest challenges of his time and was one of the people that most influenced this very transformative time in American history.
Although King faced criticism from more militant Black leaders, he continued his peaceful efforts toward both racial and economic justice. After delivering his "I've Been to the Mountaintop" speech at a rally in Memphis, King was assassinated the next day on April 4th, 1968, while standing at the balcony of his motel room.
King's assassination was, I think, devastating for many people. But there's also a rising level of organization, and many people, King's assassination galvanizes them into many kind of Black power movements across the country, many anti-poverty movements. So it's both a moment of despair, but also a moment of political flowering.
Posthumously, King was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 1977 and a Congressional Gold Medal in 2004. Today, the Martin Luther King Jr. National Holiday continues to be honored on the third Monday of every January.
Hey, my name is Jacquez Hall. I'm from Memphis, Tennessee, and I'm a grad student here at Iowa Wesley representing the football team. And the quote that I chose was, "If you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward." And the reason why I chose this quote is because personally, I feel like that I can't be stopped by nothing. And I know that I have a mindset to never give up and to persevere in anything that I put myself to. So even if I couldn't fly, run, or walk, or even crawl, I'll always find a way to take another step forward. And I encourage you all to do the same.
You know, Brother Nate, if the world that we're leaving to are with people like these students that are here and in this room, I think we're in pretty decent shape. I think we are. Nate Carr was born in Pennsylvania, one of 16 children, 9 boys and 7 girls. The legendary Carr family is considered by many as the first family of wrestling and one of the very few in all of history to be inducted together as a family in the National Wrestling Hall of Fame. You could speak to Coach Contos and me and Coach Cato and all of us, and we'll tell you there's not many more people famous in wrestling than Coach Carr and what his whole entire family has been able to do. But the story doesn't even stop there. With championships in Pennsylvania and a high school wrestler at Erie Tech with 115-7. You got beat 7 times. I can't believe that. Okay, there you go. And then a career record of 117-20 and 1 in the 150-pound weight class where he won 3 NCAA championships. People weren't doing that back then, guys. It was pretty amazing when you put it all together. But, you know, he'll tell you that all of that, including his spot on the world championship team, winning a world championship in freestyle, the World Cup, the Pan American Championships, being a U.S. Olympian and everything pales in comparison to his relationship with Linda and his family and what he's been able to do with that. And, you know, it's amazing because his son, even right now at Iowa State, is either second or third, depending on what you're looking at, ranked wrestler in the country and is one of the best wrestlers. And it's the discipline of the Carr family that comes out in so many things they do. And our vice president of marketing helped me. We went back and found some things here and we wanted you to see here too. This is the heart of Nate Carr. Nate says that as a father, a man of faith sets his foundation in life. For Nate, it's faith, friendship, family, and future comes first, a focus that keeps him busy on his own 7 children and his own approach to fatherhood, to love children unconditionally and to help them win in life. He believes that each individual has a perfect for their purpose, and that's given the right opportunities for support, as you told the wrestling team today. There are not many athletes that I look up to anymore than this guy that can still whoop my backside and throw me around pretty easily as this guy. But I tell you, he was a glass ceiling breaker, and he did so many things in a sport at that time, predominantly with by Caucasian and white people. And this guy became a legend in any sport. And we don't say the best, one of the best black athletes. No, he was one of the best athletes in American history and one of the best wrestlers in history. So it is with my great honor that I give the floor to one of my favorite pastors and coaches, Nate Carr.
Thank you, Dr. Frazier, for that kind introduction. And it is indeed a pleasure to see you and hang out with you again and your family, and to be here at Iowa Wesleyan University. I would like to have my wife stand. Would you please stand? This is my beautiful wife. Yeah. 35 plus years. And I would marry you again. I also want to thank President Christine Plunkett for this opportunity to come and to share with you and to encourage you. And then all of the students and their favored Martin Luther King Jr. quotes. I think all of you did a beautiful job, and it was a joy to hear what you had to say. We've already done so much, just a video, just talking about Dr. King's life. What an amazing man. I also want to say, I'm remiss a little bit, Sarah, his lovely wife, it's good to see you as well. What an awesome champion Dr. King was. I like to put it in my athletic vernacular, that what a champion. He stood for what was right. He stood for what was right in a time when things were divided in our country. And his dream was to break down those walls so that we could relate that God has created us all and put us here on this earth. And when I think about Martin Luther King, I love what he said. There's just this little statement here. He said, even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It's a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. Here was a guy that was intelligent, smart, sharp, well educated, graduated at 15, went to college at 15, and then moved on from Morehouse to Grosier College and then to Boston University to get his PhD in theology. And I think I say all of that to say, here's a man that was convinced that what he was fighting for was worth putting his life on the line. Not only that, you could tell it was about others. Someone has said that success is unto oneself, but significance is unto others. Wow. It wasn't about him being at the top himself as much as he was trying to, at that time, help his people, because he felt they were disenfranchised, and that's what it was about. Man, is that awesome? So we look at his leadership even today, with seemingly the world even divided now, but he would say, listen, fight for what's right. Fight for what's right. And I think a statement that really speaks to his life for me is something old Rusty Rustenbach said. He's a Christian writer, and he said something like, you and I live in a world where there's a rare minority of people that pursue objectives which are bigger than they are. Then he said something like this: For most of us, when we die, it will be as though we never lived. Wow. Can't say that about Dr. King, because he lived a life of significance because he focused on others. He focused on others. And that's what I think. And then when I look at that he was a man of faith, I think that was the energy that drove him. It drove him because he believed in a God that created him. Not another man created him, but God created him for a specific purpose. He believed that. He knew his origin. He knew that God gave him meaning and purpose to life. And dare say, and this is what made him a champion in my mind, and dare say he knew his destiny so he could fight hard, speak true, stand up, even though his life was threatened. That's why he could say, I've been to the promised land. Might not get there with you, but I've been there, and we as a people shall overcome. We as a people will make it to the promised land. Man, look at that. Origin, he's created me, not another man. Meaning comes from the purpose comes. He had to say when he was speaking, this is why I live. And they would sing that black spiritual, let the life that I live speak for me. And we're still today honoring him as a part of American history. And nothing speaks of his life probably in totality as him saying, I have a dream. And so I want to just encourage you with that phrase that he would say to you, what's your dream? Jaquez was saying, I'm not going to let nothing. I'm walking, I'm crawling, but nothing's going to stop me. I think when you think about the American dream, he said, go for it. What has God deposited in you? King was showing us what God had put in him, the way he stood, shoulders back, chin up, looking straight at death and saying, we shall overcome. And so I wanted to stop by and just encourage you today. And I've chosen one of my favorite stories. I hope that you like it. And then from there, I would like to explicate some points out of this story and share with you and hope that it encourages you today. That God has put some dreams in you. And you should follow your dream. It's from the book Chicken Soup for the Soul. Jack Canfield is one of the writers talking about his friend, and he's sharing of this story. And I like to share it with you. It just takes a few minutes to read it. If you would just listen, and then I like to again extrapolate some truths out of this story that I think will encourage you here this evening. Follow your dream. He starts off, he says, I have a friend, Jack Canfield says, I have a friend named Monty Roberts who owns a horse ranch in San Isidro. He has let me use his house to put on fundraising events to raise money for youth at risk programs. The last time I was there, he introduced me by saying, I want to tell you why I let Jack use my house. It all goes back to a story about a young man who was the son of an itinerant horse trainer who would go from stable to stable, racetrack to racetrack, farm to farm, and ranch to ranch, training horses. As a result, the boy's high school career was continually interrupted. When he was a senior, he was asked to write a paper about, listen to this, write a paper about what he wanted to be and do when he grew up. That night, he wrote a 7-page paper describing his goal of someday owning a horse ranch. He wrote about his dream in great detail, and he even drew a diagram of a 200-acre ranch showing the location of all the buildings, the stables, and the track. Then he drew a detailed floor plan for a 4,000 square foot house that would sit on the 200-acre dream ranch. He put a great deal of his heart into the project, and the next day he handed it to his teacher. 2 days later, he received his paper back. On the front of the page was a large red F with a note that read, "See me after class." The boy with the dream went to see the teacher after class as he asked, "Why did I receive an F?" The teacher said this is an unrealistic dream for a young boy like you. You have no money. You come from an itinerant family. You have no resources. You have no resources. Owning a horse ranch requires a lot of money. You have to buy land. You have to pay the large stud fees. There's no way you could ever do it. Then the teacher added, "If you will rewrite this paper with a more realistic goal, I will reconsider your grade." The boy went home and thought about it long and hard. He asked his father what he should do. His father said, "Look, son, you have to make up your own mind on this. However, I think it is a very important decision for you." Finally, after sitting with it for a week, the boy turned in the same paper, making no changes at all. He stated, "You can keep the F, and I'll keep my dream." Monty then turned to the assembled group and said, "I tell you this story because you are sitting in my 4,000 square foot house in the middle of my 200-acre horse ranch. I still have that school paper framed over the fireplace," he added. "The best part of the story is that 2 summers ago, that same school teacher brought 30 kids to camp out on my ranch for a week. When the teacher was leaving, he said, 'Look, Monty, I can tell you this now. When I was your teacher, I was something of a dream stealer. During those years, I stole a lot of kids' dreams. Fortunately, you had enough gumption not to give up on yours. Don't let anyone steal your dreams. Follow your heart no matter what." What a story. One of my favorite stories. And one of the things I would extrapolate and pull out that I think would help you is that every dream must be written down. Now, I know you've probably heard something like that. Every dream should be written down. Writing your goals down forces you to get clear on what exactly it is that you want to accomplish. It motivates you to complete the necessary tasks for success. The process of writing your goals down on paper, listen to this, forces you to strategize. To ask questions about the current progress, to brainstorm your plan of attack. psychology professor, Dr. Gail Matthews at the Dominican California University, you know, she said goal setting for 270 students, those that wrote down their dream, accomplished their dream at a 42% average. 42% are more likely, if you write your dream down, you're able to accomplish that. Isn't that awesome? So when I think about what Martin was saying, listen, put it down on paper. We're still looking at what he said. It's still encouraging us. I challenge you today to write it down. In scripture, the prophet said, write the vision, make it plain so that those that run might finish, might run well. Write it down. Put it in front of you where you can see it. What has God deposited in you? What is your dream? As you sit here tonight, as we celebrate Martin Luther King's Day, what's your dream? What's in your heart? Look at this. If you listen to me, begin to write. Write it down. And it will come to pass. Write it down. The other thing that really stood out to me, if you're going to every dream, you have to write it down. The next thing that really hit me was every dream has death threats. Every dream has death threats. Did you see that teacher, how she spoke to Monty? Man, you got to watch who you listen to, because there's always somebody trying to steal your dream, have you rewrite it. She gave him some death threats that if he listened to what she says, it will kill the dream. You are unrealistic dreams. That's what she told him. Your family background is no good. You have no money, no resources. Owning a horse ranch requires a lot of money. You have to buy land. You have to pay for the original breeding stock. You have to pay for large stud feeds. Negative cheerleading, that's what I call it. Negative cheering. Then he said, listen, you got to rewrite your dream. Then I will let you know if you can do it. Wow. As you dream, as you write it down, realize that there will be death threats to your dream. That's why Martin said, I know you're trying to take me out, but Martin was one that was pursuing objectives that were bigger than he was. Knowing his destiny, knowing where he was going. That's a tough statement, Rusty Rustenbach said, you know. For most of us, it will be as though we never lived. You don't want that type of ending. Like you never lived. Just went off the scene. And then I also liked it that your dream, every dream has death threats, so you have to be ready for it. And then I like what his dad said when he was kind of trying to decide what he was going to do. Every dream has a deciding point. Monty's father said to him, his father said, you have to make up your own mind on this. Wow. A deciding point as you pursue, as you move on to doing what God has you here for. A deciding point, a decision has to be made, so you got to own it from your heart. Monty owned it. There was a deciding point. He sat down. And then from the deciding point, the next point that I liked about what Monty said is that every dream must be declared against the opposition. You can keep your F, he told the teacher, and I'll keep my dream. You keep your F. See, the F can represent failure, a failure statement. Look at that, the deciding point that I'm going to go after my dream. Then he moved on to a declaration of his dream against the opposing opposition. Keep your effort. Have to be able to declare. Isn't that awesome? I will keep my dream. Will you keep your dream? Will you declare it to those who are telling you death threats to your dream? Will you be able to declare it? Will you decide and declare? You have to like that. Took that same paper back. Don't you love it? Didn't make any changes. No, all marked with red on it. Didn't make any changes. You know why? It wasn't her dream. It was his. And then the ending, the reality of the dream. Monty turned to the group and said, I tell you this story because you are sitting in my 4,000 square foot house in the middle of my 200-acre horse ranch. Then he says this, I still have the paper above the fireplace. How about he wrote? It started with the writing of the paper. Look how he held on to that paper. Wow, it had to drive us every time he looked at it. That's why he got to write that. The other thing about him starting writing the paper and keeping it, and then look at him. It's encouraging others. He's got at-risk kids in his house. He's telling them, this is what I dream. She told me I couldn't do it. This is what I dream. Look, it's still up there on the fireplace. He wrote it down. T. Lawrence said something provocative and thoughtful when talking about dreams. He said something like this: all men dream, but not equally. Those that dream by the night in the dusty recesses of their minds awaken in the day and find it was all vanity. Then he says this: with those daydreamers are dangerous men, for they act out their dreams with eyes wide open to make them possible. Daydreamers, dangerous men, for they act on their dreams with eyes wide open, making them possible, bringing them to pass. What has he put in your heart? What is it that he wants you to write down? Because you can do it. You can do it. That's what Jaquez was saying. Nothing's going to stop me. That's what Martin said. It's rooted in this American dream. That's what's so great about our country. There's some highly optimistic people. There are some, lack of a better word, Panglossians. That's a highly optimistic person that will not take no for an answer. And I challenge you to dream, to write it down. Know that people will oppose you, but be ready. Because think about all the inventions. Think about all the creations we have in this world. What if this obstacle, every obstacle that came, what if they would have stopped? we wouldn't have what we have today. You know why? They didn't stop. Watch out for those death threats. Make sure you decide and declare. If you do those things, your dream will become a reality. Be a daydreamer. Keep your eyes wide open so you can make it come to pass. God bless you. God strengthen you. May you follow your dream.